So I'm here reading this question, and I thought it was super interesting, and I kind of wanted to read it out loud, I guess, with you, because it it just makes a lot of sense, and I think it's super interesting because it's nice when you find, like, for example, here, this person asks, "Is there a dog for this behavior?" Um, well, in the docs, right? Is there something about it in the docs? And then Mariano answered, I don't see it in any point documentation. So there are some cases where some stuff is not documented properly. So it is important that we create some sort of trail about these kinds of behaviors, and especially if they're not documented, because we need to have, like, for example, this question in Stack Overflow that is searchable through Google, something like that, or like this video that I'm creating now. It's important because if it's not in the docs, how will you find out how it works or that this functionality exists? um, so yeah, I thought it was important to do this, even though it's not like a transformation case per se. Is more of a question of how is this working. But the fact that Mariano answered this question is super important. If you don't know who Mariano is, he is the one or one of the architects that created DataWeave from scratch like 10 years ago or so. So it is very important whenever Mariano answers something about DataWeave, because you know that he's gonna have a very like detailed explanation and important explanation. So again, just as in my previous videos, if you go to dataweave.milsoft.com, you will find the landing page for DataWeave. I am right now going to the Stack Overflow link so I can find out these kinds of questions that are being asked in Stack Overflow, and I got to this question. So let's just get into it. This was asked by, oh, again, Harshank. Well, he does a lot of questions on DataWeave. Thank you for creating such detailed questions in Stack Overflow, because now the rest of the people like us can actually get into reading them. Why the default keyword acts like try, catch, or else in some cases? I recently noticed an interesting behavior from the default keyword. It acts like try, catch, or try or else in some situations. For example, if you try to execute the following script, and let me just add it so you can actually see this script in action. It outputs invalid number. So this. And it does give you a warning here in Visual Studio Code, but like it can still be broken. I will get to it in a moment. You will get the output as invalid number. But if you remove the default part and only try ABCL number, it will throw an error. So let's try that now. Yep, cannot coerce string ABC to number, which is expected. Looks like the statement is behaving as if, well, as it was like this. So now let's take this and put it here. And if we run this, we will get invalid number, right? So this is doing a try for this, or else invalid number. So try to do this. This is just a lambda. I wonder if we can just do this without the lambda. No, you can't. Okay. Yeah, it's expecting a lambda. So you're trying to do this, the first code, ABC as number. And if you get an error, you will then send invalid number, right? This makes sense. But in theory, the default keyword is not supposed to be like a try catch, right? It's just supposed to be a default. But the error should, in theory, come out. I think that's what this person is asking. However, this is not the end of it. I cannot find this behavior documented, but after some hits in trial, I'm seeing that it only works for the following errors. 1, errors during type coercion. So like this, try ABC as number default. or two, errors raised by using the function fail. For example, fail error default default. Let's try this one. Oh, I'm missing. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, default. There may be more, but I am only able to get the info from hidden trials, as there is no documentation around this behavior that I can find. I think that number one is to make developers able to easily do something like payload.someField as number default 0, without having them to check for a null value before doing the coercion. So if this is null, then this will default to 0. I mean, otherwise it would have failed at payload.someField as number. Yeah, if the field is null. And this should be rewritten like this. So first the default 0 and then as number. My question is, one, is this behavior reliable, and can I use this form without worrying it will fail? So like, yeah, the default coming after the coercion. And two, is there a dog for this behavior? So now the answer from Mariano, I know that I'm basically just reading this out loud to you, but sometimes people understand better when someone is explaining stuff to them, and that's completely normal. Some people are more audio, like they learn by hearing things. Some people learn by watching things. Some people read and understand. Like, there are different types of learning. So if you are the one that needs a video to understand something, that's perfectly normal and you don't have to feel ashamed of it. Just a thought. So the story about the behavior of default is, as you said, it has two completely different capabilities. One, it is the one we all know that even when the left side, sorry, blank there, even when the left side is null, it will return whatever is on the right. And the second one, it acts as an exception handler for some exceptions. This was inherited from DataWeave 1, and sadly, we cannot change it. That is super insightful. I didn't know DataWeave 1 worked like that. So what kind of exception are we handling? One, calling a function that doesn't support null. And two, any coercion exception like the one that you found. Is this behavior reliable, and can I use this form without worrying it will fail? Yes, it is possible and it is reliable, but it is not promoted. I would recommend using try for exception handling, but yes, we are not going to change this behavior, and there's no docs. So that is super insightful because, yeah. So for example, if we have, and let me just enable our preview for this one. If we have null as number, it will fail, right? But then if we have null as number and then default 0, then it will return 0. So you can use this as an exception handler as like at some point, instead of having to do the try and everything that we did last. Oh, try. And then, yes. We have the lambda here. Yeah, leave me alone. So instead of doing, what was it? I forgot. Oh, yeah, null as number. So this is not a successful response. So if this is false, we can do or else, and then add the 0. Yeah, which is basically what the other person explained in the question. So instead of having to do all of this, you can simply do this thing, null as number, and then put default 0 here. So Marina answered that this was inherited from DataWeave 1 and that you can use this if you want to do it. It can serve as a null because, like, also if you have null default 0, for example, it will output 0 or like 2 or whatever. It will output whatever you have here in case this is null, which is not gonna return in an error, right? But if you try to coerce as something, then it will return in an error unless you add the default so you can actually output something else, right? So that was super insightful. I didn't know the default would work like that. Oh, and I already passed the 10 minutes. All right. So yeah, again, it's totally fine if you needed me to explain this to you in a video. It's just people learn differently, and you don't have to feel embarrassed about anything. And if someone makes you feel embarrassed, that's on them, not on you. So all right, this was super insightful. Thank you, Mariano, for answering that question. I'm thinking that I will ask the questions here now because I want everyone else to see it. And also I think this kind of applies to my GitHub repo. Alexandra Martinez, maybe, because I remember using the try thing. DataWeave. Oh, what? Repos, DataWeave scripts, utilities. So here, for example, I am using the try value as date. And if this is a success, then this will return like true or false, whether the given value can be coerced into a date. And I'm doing that because I want to actually coerce it as date, else return null. So I'm thinking that now I can do something like null as date. Date, default, null. Yeah, so it works. And like this can be anything, right? Yeah. So I don't need to do all of this now because I can just do that, which is super insightful. So thanks to this question, now I know that I can do this whole code super easier. So thank you so much. Again, Harshank and Mariano for this question and this answer. I really appreciate it. And I'm way past 10 minutes. Sorry about that, folks. But this was very important for me to create a video about it in case you hadn't viewed this question before. I will put the link in the description so you can go into it and reply or ask more questions if needed. And I will also add the link to my DataWeave scripts repo in case you want to look at it and see why it can now be simplified a lot more. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!